Hey, it's Sunday night in East Lansing, Michigan. My name is Jim Comparoni. Welcome. We got SpartanMag live going on here tonight. Gonna have a good time with it with the Spartan Maggers out there, Michigan State fans worldwide, nationwide, throughout the state of Michigan. Gonna be talking Michigan State football, basketball, recruiting, all kinds of good things like we do every week. Sometimes it's on Tuesday, sometimes it's on Thursday, depending on whether, basically this time of year, whether or not Michigan State is playing basketball or not. Michigan State, big victory at Indiana on Saturday. And Tuesday, going to have a big one against the Illini, against Illinois. Coming into Breslin Center on Tuesday, we'll talk a little bit about that one. The season's been given a little bit of hope right now for the toughest part of the schedule. And Michigan State's playing their best basketball, which is not saying much, and it was only briefly. But the reason we're still watching, the reason we still care, we say we, I'm talking about you guys and myself as an observer for many years. The reason we think, and I know you do too, that Michigan State still has a chance to maybe get off the mat and be something comparable to what Michigan State's been in recent years, recent decades, is because of Tom Mother freaking Izzo. That's why. He's done it before, and they showed some glimpses, especially in the second half at Indiana. I know Indiana's not great, but everybody in the Big Ten is pretty good. Indiana had been hot. Michigan State, 52 points in the second half. Looked like a decent basketball team. They're still not all the way there yet, but reason to possibly think they might be able to play some good basketball this week. Maybe get a win against Illinois or Ohio State. Excuse me. And that could make things kind of interesting. Still a long way to go to get there, but they're working feverishly right now to become the type of team that can make a feverish run at things, and they've done it before. I've got a season I'll compare them to a little bit later. Remind me about that, and I'll get to that. Also, got about 15 questions here from SpartanMag.com subscribers. If you're just joining us, my name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Been doing it for a long time, having a lot of fun. Able to do it because of you people, the subscribers. Those of you that are not subscribers to this channel or SpartanMag.com, do both. We'd love to have you do both. Subscribe to this YouTube site right now. We'd like to push that over 3,000. Give us a thumbs up. Also, SpartanMag.com. We appreciate the Spartan Mag subscribers. If you're not a subscriber, if you're Spartan Mag curious, go over to SpartanMag.com and you can get a free trial, 30 days. Test drive us. You'll like it. It'll become an addiction. You'll have fun with it. You'll make some friends, maybe a couple of enemies. But if some people are not nice on a regular basis, we get rid of them. There's been a couple we've gotten rid of in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you've noticed or not. We try to be very tolerant of all kinds of negativity. Some things we're not tolerant of. But it's a good place to be. It is the church of what's happening now in Michigan State sports, is the Underground Bunker message board. And we want to say thanks very much to Big Don. Big Don. With the personal sponsorship tonight. Appreciate that, Big Don. Really do. Appreciate all the support Big Don has given us over the years, and his feedback and the insight that he gives us about what's going on in the wonderful town of DeWitt, Michigan. It's good to have him here at Spartan Mag Live on a Sunday night. You know, as we get into the spring, Sunday night might be a nice time for us to fit in and have it on a regular basis once the seasons are over. I have to wait and see on that. In the summertime, maybe not so much Sundays, because you guys are all going to be out fishing for walleyes off the dock at that point and other good stuff. I've been driving around this weekend. Youth hockey games and tournaments. Last weekend, youth hockey tournament in Cleveland. This weekend, Saturday night in Port Huron. Earlier today in Waterford. Driving around lower Michigan a little bit. Seeing a lot of snowmobile tracks out there. A lot of people out there in snowmobiles. You don't see that around Lansing for some reason. And I was mentioning that to my son when we were driving back. I'm like, you see all these? When I was growing up in southeast Michigan, there was a lot of that. I was in the northern outreaches of the Detroit area, in rural small town Oakland County, the top of the tip of Oakland County, if there's a tip. But there was some snowmobiling going on there, still is. Back in the old days, when you used to have a television that would pick up the signal with rabbit ears, Now, you're old and you lived in the North and in a rural setting, if you can relate to this. Rabbit ears, and sometimes a snowmobile would go by and it would interfere with the signal. And the television wouldn't come in for like a second. There'd be like snow, and I don't know what frequency there was with a snowmobile engine that would mess with rabbit ears' reception of television. But 1978, Northern Oakland County, it's the way it was. And if you're trying to watch Hockey Night in Canada, Channel 9 out of Windsor on the rabbit ears, sometimes a snowmobile would create interference. Yeah, it's rural, a little bit rural. Not too bad. It wasn't so rural that I couldn't get Detroit television stations or Windsor or WRIF, the home of rock and roll. Anyway, hey, come on in. We've got about 15 questions. We will be fielding those. Also, give us some questions over there in the chat area. We will talk about that. The big thing this week, Michigan State basketball victory over Indiana 78-71. Had a podcast last night with Nils Deco. Really great to reconnect with him. Marlo, appreciate Marlo. Marlo, thank you. Appreciate the personal sponsorship. Got one from Brad Forshenko. Thanks, Brad. Really appreciate all you guys. Hey, and the way it is, if you guys do a personal sponsorship, I'll find your question. I've got to remember to do that. Your question will go straight to the top. But Brad Forshenko, Marlo, all you guys, appreciate that. Marlo, hey, does a real good job with posts on the message board, keeping us honest in a lot of ways, providing some wisdom in a lot of ways. And Brad Forshenko keeping Austin weird for us, which is important. Last week I had a Keep Austin Weird mug, and nobody commented on it. Brad Forshenko and Old Tuck are two of they make the SpartanMag team every year. And they're from Austin, and I had the mug and didn't hear anything. It was just crickets from those guys about that. Kind of hurt my feelings a little bit, but that's all right. Sometimes things miss. You guys may have seen it. You just didn't mention it. This weekend, snowmobiling. That looks blue. This is actually green. I don't know why that looks blue. You know what? I must have some sort of hue thing. Chris Trynham. Appreciate Chris Trynham with a personal sponsorship. Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate that. Let's see if Chris had a question. Said make it rain. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate it. Now, back there in the bookshelf, everything, that's not my actual bookshelf. That's green screen. That's a picture of my bookshelf. I hate to tell you that. But the colors are all correct there. But my hue, I must have something off with the hue because I'm telling you this is green, not blue. Anyway, you guys don't care about that. Michigan State improved to 11-9, 5-9 in the Big Ten, beating Indiana 78-71, scoring 52 points in the second half. The podcast last night with Nils Deco talking about it. It's over at SpartanMag.com. SpartanMag subscribers know where to find it. Interesting thing about it, the big development, of course, Aaron Henry moving to power forward. Now the question is, will they keep him there? And, it's hard to predict. I mean, they like to stay with things for a long time. But the numbers yesterday against Indiana, Michigan State was losing 19-8. Turnovers were a problem early. We all know that. And that's probably not going away anytime soon, although Rocket Watts showed a little more steady, poised control than he's shown in the past. Don Straight. Making it rain. Yeah, Don. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Another one. Did that one come with a question? Let me see here. No question from Don. Trying to make it rain. Forshenko getting in the action. Marlo, all you guys. Appreciate those personal sponsorships. Appreciate your support of SpartanMag.com and the work that we do over there. A lot. But getting back to that Indiana game, Rocket Watts showed a little more control, a little more poise. In a lot of ways, he did not have to be quarterback all the time. Even in the last 15 minutes, when he was the only lead guard on the court, sometimes it was Langford, sometimes it was Henry. They shared it, so it was not all on him every single time down the court. And whether it be just general preparedness or sports psychology, whatever it is, that seemed to suit Rocket Watts well. And his defense was good. And Izzo had been saying the defense had been waning a little bit for Rocket Watts. And one of the quotes from Izzo after the game, he said that DJ Stevens said after practice a couple of days ago, he said, that's the Rocket Watts that we thought we were getting this year. Izzo said 2 days ago Rocket Watts had the best practice he's ever had. Yet, Rocket Watts didn't intrude on the game. Hayden Vischer, joining the fun, joining the party. Got the tip train going. Thanks a lot, Hayden. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, guys. Means a lot. You might notice I'm looking the wrong way. We got the Paul Bunyan Trophy. Right there. Yes, from rivalrytrophy.com. Sent that one in to us. And it's heavy, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Anyway, so Rocket Watts showing some progress, which is carried over to his defense. And took the bull by the horns offensively a couple times with some another one from Marlowe. Marlowe back to the line. Fills it up. 25 is the standard tonight. He's saying, okay, yes, good. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks a lot. But Rocket Watts, that one time in transition when Indiana was trying to go full court press man-to-man, he got ahead of his guy, kept him on his back pocket, no resistance to the lane, took it all the way to the rim, scored. That was one of Michigan State's last field goals, one of the daggers, and it was a good decision. It was early in the shot clock, but he had green light, and he just went ahead and played some basketball, made a big shot there. Good decision there. Didn't hunt his shot. Had a step-back jumper at an important time with the shot clock going down too. So nice, encouraging progress from Rocket Watts. He played about, 28 minutes in that game? But the big news, something Dan Dockage didn't realize was going on. I mean, Dockage will sit there and tell you how smart he is. And I don't begrudge him that. I mean, he knows his basketball clearly, and he puts in the time and the work. And I kind of get a kick out of his personality. I even get a kick out of the way he tells us in the media that we're all stupid. I get a kick out of that too. But he missed the memo on Michigan State, the importance of Michigan State putting Henry at the 4. They've not done that a lot this year. And Langford at the point. They did that a little bit the last few games. When it was 19-8, that's when Michigan State moved Aaron Henry to the 4. There were 9 minutes, 23 seconds left in the first half. And at that point, Langford went to the point. And Langford did a solid job. Now, there was one time, I don't know if he was at the point or not, but he was trying to throw a skip pass over to the left corner, and it got blocked and taken for one of those. That was one of the early turnovers. And Langford did have some turnovers a couple times. I mean, he had like a couple double dribbles. He double dribbled twice one time in one possession. Second time it was called. But Langford maybe can clean that up. I don't know. But they moved Henry to the 4. And from that point on in the first half, Michigan State outscored Indiana 22-11. Tied it up, went into intermission down 4. 22-11 with Henry at the 4. All right. Came out in the second half, they started Joey Hauser at the 4. Originally, they started Malik Hall at the 4. Played 3 minutes, 3 turnovers, got him out, didn't go back in. Started the second half with Hauser, struggled. And a guy, Don Strait, Don, one of the guys that posted earlier, made a point on the question we'll get to a little bit later, saying how did Hauser go from being a guy that was cleaning up the boards earlier in the season to someone that was pretty soft on the boards? I mean, he was getting bumper car. That's a verb now. He got bumper card. Getting bumped out of the way repeatedly in the lane, around the glass, for putbacks, for post-ups, for loose balls. It was not a good look. So they got Hauser out of there 5 minutes into the second half. By that time, Indiana was up 8 again. And then with 14:52 left in the game, they put Henry back at the 4. And they kept him at the 4 the rest of the game. Henry played all 20 minutes in the second half. So did Langford. I mentioned this in the podcast last night. Michigan State is not running in transition as much this year. Point guard things just aren't conducive for them to do it. And because of that, they're not burning up as much fuel, lung fuel, leg fuel. The legs are a little more lively a little bit. So playing Henry, Langford, all 20 minutes of the second half, able to do that because they're not running as much. So that could be a positive maybe. turn it into a positive if you're going to play a certain way. Henry plays all 20 minutes second half. Goes to the fourth, 14:52 to go. And they traded off point guard, as you know. A little bit Rocket Watts on the ball more than he has been in the last couple of weeks. Did okay. Langford, some point. Henry, some point. Mixed it up. And I thought that was effective because, late in the Purdue game, it was clear that Michigan State wanted to go through Aaron Henry. Sometimes with the guards through play, where it's a tandem backcourt, two guards in the backcourt. They give it to Henry at the top of the key. The two guards go through, cut down, and either, symmetrically either pop out or sometimes they go to the same side. But the hard part was getting the ball to the top of the key to Aaron Henry because Purdue watches film. They know that they like to do that, especially if they can see that they want to go through the offense through Henry. So mixing it up, sometimes Henry, sometimes Langford, sometimes Watts, I thought that it was harder for Indiana to know where the ball was going for Michigan State to begin their offensive set. Michigan State's never done it that way under Izzo. Maybe that'll work. Because I don't think they want to just give it purely to Langford as the point or purely to Henry or purely to Rocket Watts. Lawyer out with a shoulder, might be out for a while. He's doing his best, but maybe it's better off with a smaller playing group. I mentioned that last night in the podcast also. The two best halves that Michigan State's played all year, the second half against Rutgers, second half against Indiana. Both times they shrank their playing group down considerably. You might remember they didn't play was it Bingham or Lawyer in the second half against Rutgers. Now, Bingham was a factor. He played well in the second half against Indiana. All right, so they move Henry to the 4 with 14:52 to go in the game. From that point on in the second half, Michigan State outscored Indiana in the second half, 43-28. Remember, they scored 52 points in the second half. 43 came after they moved Henry to the 4. 43-28. You combine that with the 22-11 in the first half, and in 24 minutes, the 24 minutes of the 40 in which Aaron Henry played power forward, Michigan State outscored Indiana 65-39. 65-39 with Henry at the 4. Now that's against one opponent. That does not mean that against one opponent in one matchup situation doesn't mean it'll be that way all the time, but they looked different. Quote from Archie Miller. He said, Aaron Henry is a tough matchup. They isolated him in the post and isolated him on the perimeter, and we did not have a real good matchup for him. Unquote. We did not have a real good matchup for him. Who does? If you put him at the 4, if he's at the 3, he's being guarded by a small forward and a more athletic guy. When he's at the 4, the opponent, he's usually being guarded by a bigger guy who's slower, unless the other team normally goes small. In which case, Henry, that's a fair matchup, but then Henry's probably going to outwork that guy. Should be able to outwork that guy on the boards and in other ways. And Trace Jackson Davis on Aaron Henry, he said, quote, Aaron Henry really just kind of took over the game for them. He put them on his back, and he was making tough shots after tough shots. A lot of respect from Trace Jackson Davis and Archie Miller for Aaron Henry, and for good reason. Career game in front of his parents. And, Henry said that his parents being there gave him a little more juice. And that gets back to what Izzo says. Izzo tells us we don't understand everything these players are going through, not seeing their parents, been in a bubble since July. They're working for the university, not getting paid, right? And stressing out about the test all the time. Izzo says, in the last couple of weeks, guys get on the bus after getting a positive test or a negative test, meaning they're clear, and they're like a sigh of relief because none of them want to get positive right now for obvious reasons. They don't want to miss the end of the season. A lot of stress. So he sees his parents. Of course, he's in his home state and lit a fire, and he was efficient, strong, effective, making shots, physically strong, motivated. Can he be that way all the time? You would think so. But, again, we don't know what they're going through. Another point he made last night. Langford was good. 5 out of 6. Efficient. Smart. Great leadership, Izzo said. Gabe Brown, 14 points. Was really the extra juice that allowed them to win. Gabe Brown, Josh Langford, been inconsistent. They just got over COVID. We got to remember that. I mean, we see them as observers, as fans, and it's just number one in a Michigan State jersey. He'll be okay. No, that's Joshua Langford. He's still working out rust, getting through COVID. Some players get through it and they're fine. I pointed out Jason Tatum in the NBA says he's still having trouble with it. Everybody has a different thing with it. Izzo said he was hoping that Joshua Langford would get back to being a good version of Joshua Langford. He hoped by January. Well, January he came down with COVID. So maybe now February 21st, maybe now that's his January. Now we're getting the fifth-year senior, former McDonald's All-American. I know he's not quite McDonald's All-American, but he's good. And yesterday he was really good. Yesterday was one of the first times I can remember, it might be the first time ever, that Langford, Brown, and Henry were on the court together for extended periods of time. And in this game, they were on the court together for 15 minutes in the second half together. Those two played for 20 minutes. Brown played for 15 in the second half. And it looked different, didn't it? You got Langford at 6'6", athletic, gets into the film study, plays good defense on the perimeter. Gabe Brown, hot and cold on defense, but he's got some length, got some ability. Aaron Henry can play defense on just about everybody pretty well. I'm not saying he's locked down everywhere, but he's a good defender. Switched to 1 through 4. In that lineup, he guards a 4. Against Illinois, they stay. They're not a team that goes big very often. They stay small. Ohio State's more of a smallish team, although they're effective inside. But Michigan State can go Henry power forward and be small and not worry about really getting really becoming a liability defensively size-wise. And that might be their best rebounding team. Out-rebounded Indiana 36-29. Going small and rebounding better. Range rebounds. So, interesting development with Aaron Henry at the 4. And the thing about Henry, when he's at the 4, now it's slower guys on him. Shot fake. Hesitation go. Jab step go. First step. He's beaten that guy more easily than he would beat a regular small forward. So if he beats a guy, he's drawing an extra defender. Now kick out, extra pass. That's why one of the reasons Gabe Brown was getting those outside perimeter shots. So it's got a domino effect. So I said I was going to talk a little bit about a comparison to an earlier season, and I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. If I can find it. I might be able to do it off the top of my head. If I don't, there's 14 and 11. Yeah, here it was. All right. The year was 2003, if you're old enough to remember that. That was the year after Marcus Taylor left early. So Michigan State was stuck without a point guard in 2003. And they had the sophomores, Chris Hill, Alan Anderson, Kelvin Torbert. They had Al Anaganye as a senior. That team, they're coming off a 2002 season, which was a tough season. One and done in the NCAA tournament against North Carolina State. And that team in 2003, the next year, began the season 9-7. They began the season 1-3 in the Big Ten. Now, this team ended up going to the Elite Eight, 2003. Now, whoa. I'm not saying that the current team could go to the Elite Eight, but just listen to me for a second. 2003, Michigan State began 9-7, including a loss to Stan Joplin in Toledo. Remember when Toledo came into Breslin and beat Michigan State? Then they lost another game. They were 10-8. They were 1-4 in the Big Ten, 10-8 in 2003. That team was not going to the NCAA tournament, not at that point. And the Big Ten was not all that strong in 2003 either. Won a couple of games, got their head above water a little bit. Then they lost at Illinois 70-40. At Illinois 70-40. I remember that game. Bill Self was at Illinois. They played a triangle and 2 against Michigan State. Michigan State hadn't seen that. They did not guard Adam Ballinger. Michigan State did not have anyone that could hit an elbow jumper. And Adam Ballinger had been a good shooter earlier in his career, but he went into a horrible senior slump. And they got to the point where they got later in the season, pretty much right around that time after that game. And they moved Ballinger out of the playing group. He's a senior. He scored, maybe 500-600 points in his career. Out of the playing group late in that senior year. 10-8 record, 1-4. I remember after that game against Illinois, I got to practice, and I saw before practice started. Usually we're not there at the beginning of practice, but for some reason they started late or whatever, and I was outside the door looking in, waiting to go in, and Izzo was just talking to the guys in a huddle at center court at the auxiliary gym. and talking and talking and talking, not yelling, just talking. And that talk went on and on and on and on. I mean, probably 15 minutes before practice started. I didn't ask him then what he said, but later on when they went to the Elite Eight, I said, what was that talk about 4 weeks ago? Well, that you don't usually do that. He goes, you're right, we don't usually do that. And what did they talk about? Yeah, it was probably just stuff about, representing the program and everybody doing their part. But looking back at it, I don't know if he remember or not, but I suspect he was probably ironing things out for someone like Adam Ballinger to realize that we got to do different things and people have to buy in. Anyway, you might remember Carmelo Anthony and Syracuse came to Breslin, and Syracuse would go on to win the national championship that year, and it was a great game. Syracuse won 76-75. That game, Michigan State moved Allen Anderson to point guard. They had gone most of the year with Chris Hill at point guard because he's point guard size and a good shooter, but wasn't really a point guard. I mean, he was better as a sophomore, maybe than Rocket Watts is so far, steadier, but just didn't have that ability to make reads and make passes. So Izzo made a drastic change. Went to Anderson, started running more. I'm not saying this team can run more. Went to Allen Anderson, lost to Syracuse, but from that point on, they played a lot better. When they lost to Syracuse, and that was like late January, they were 14-11, Michigan State was. This is a team that went to the Elite Eight. 14-11, and Izzo went to Allen Anderson at point guard at that day and moved Ballinger out. My point is that he was still tinkering. And that year, he ended up getting the engine running. This is my biggest point. That was in game 25. They were 14-11. 25 games into the season, he's still tinkering and making changes and got it to work. 25 games in. That's how long it takes sometimes to get your crap together. It usually takes 30 games to get your crap together. They won some games in the year, got in the tournament, beat Colorado, started running more, upset number 2 seed Florida down in Florida, beat defending national champion Maryland in the Sweet 16, and played a tough Texas team in the Alamo Dome and lost by 8, but in different circumstances might have been able to beat that team. That was one of those deals. That year in the Big Ten, they had stopped. They'd been blowing the whistle on if you bumped cutters away from the ball on defense. Like yesterday, Langford was doing a lot of it against Jackson Davis. Away from the ball, the ball's out there. Jackson Davis getting a screen. Jackson Davis coming through, and Langford's guarding someone else. And Langford just bumps him, gets in his way just for a second, just to give the defender a chance to catch up. Bumping cutters. Michigan State used to be great at that with Andre Hudson, Antonio Smith. Michigan State against Wisconsin, Final Four in 2000 at the Hoosier Dome in Indianapolis. Score was, 19-17 at halftime? Wisconsin with Dick Bennett. It was nothing but bumping cutters, both teams. To the point, Izzo usually loves that. But Izzo, at that time, Michigan State was more talented than Wisconsin. And Michigan State would have preferred to play more free and easy, but they could play a tractor pull also. Halftime, Izzo's walking off the court, up the tunnel, and I'm standing there. Mariucci's in the audience, and Izzo, there's a lot of press around. And Izzo's like, hey, Mariucci, how do you like the Rose Bowl out there? Because Izzo was complaining about how physical it was. He was kind of joking. Izzo could do that. He can win on the ropes. He can win on the cage. He can win on the mat. Roy Williams was not impressed. He didn't hear that. But Roy Williams had a lot of clout. And he thought during the offseason, he made a big push for officiating nationally to change. And he said 19-17 should not be the score at halftime in the Final Four. Should not be bumper car football out there. So they made a sweeping change to start blowing whistles for, away from the ball, freedom of movement, no more bumping cutters. In the Big Ten, no more bumping cutters. Michigan State had to change the way they played defense. Michigan State played Texas. Texas was out there bumping cutters. Somehow the Big 12 didn't get the memo. And I know a lot of the officials would officiate Big 10 and Big 12, but somehow Texas had come into the game bumping cutters, and they had been indoctrinated to continue to play that way under Rick Barnes. Michigan State hadn't played that way. And Texas out-Michigan Stated Michigan State because Michigan State had been castrated by Roy Williams and the the rules committee that year. Michigan State came out of it, went to the Elite Eight, got the running game going. But in a different year, different circumstances, if Michigan State had their ground game gear on, they could have maybe, they ended up losing by 8 or 10. They were in it, down by 4, down by 6, down by 2, down by 4 the whole game. Texas was a good team. Michigan State had its limitations, but maybe Izzo would have another banner if it hadn't been for those rascally referees and the way they changed the game. It's one thing about the sport. It's a great, beautiful sport, but it's just random that way in a lot of ways, the way it changes and shots and all that stuff. But anyway, Michigan State is 20 games in right now. Game number 25 in 2003, they changed the point guard situation and got Ballinger out. Right now, game 20. For obvious reasons, only 20 games. And for obvious reasons, Tom Izzo was away from this team for 5 weeks. 2 weeks in December, 3 weeks during the shutdown. I realized during the shutdown he was able to have some individual workouts with some players, but in terms of quality control, you take that man out of the equation for 5 weeks, and you're in game number 20, and this team in 03 they were 14-11 at that point. So he's trying to expedite the situation. I don't know if they're going to get there. It just happens to be the Big Ten's deeper than it's ever been that I can ever remember, and this just happens to be the week in which Michigan State's going to get a visit from number 4 Illinois, number 5 Ohio State. It's going to be very difficult, but at the Breslin Center back then in January of 2003, they got a visit from the eventual national champion and took them right to the edge. The Michigan State team we've seen all year has no chance to win these games. The team we saw in the second half, maybe a glimmer of hope, especially because it could be different if Henry plays the 4 and Watts can handle a little bit more of the point guard situation. Better. And it also has a chance because of Tom Mother Freaking Izzo. We all know these truths to be self-evident. That's the name of that tune. All right. Sorry about that soliloquy. Let me see if I missed anything over here in the chat area. Got a starting 5. Angelo Gross, Harold Joyner enthusiast, says he's not last. Hayden Vischer, Sunday Fun Day. Sunday Fun Day. Hayden Vischer. Yeah, I know Hayden Vischer. I've never met him personally, but he's here frequently. Appreciate him. Sunday Fun Day. Is he quoting Susanna Hoffs there? Oh, Prince. Prince wrote that song. My bad. That might not be what he meant. Angelo Gross, Hayden Vischer. Angelo Gross enthusiast. He's earlier for the first time in a while. Angelo Gross enthusiast. 27 for Henry. Wow. Jacob Theory saying go green. Old Tuck, the bell cow, he's here. And Rob South saying what's up, fellas. So starting 5, you got Old Tuck in the middle. Jacob Terry running the point. Rob South shooting from the wing. Angelo Gross, enthusiast. We're going to put him down low at the stretch 4. Hayden Vischer at the other wing. 2 guard, lighting it up. That's the starting 5. Somebody named, I only appreciate real content, says AJC, hoping you're having a good Sunday. Thank you. Donnie, a Pistons fan, says tough stretch coming up for us. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. Let's go to the mailbag real quick. Let's go to the mailbag. From question number 1 from Macklin JB out of Rockford, Michigan. Macklin JB does a great job over the Underground Bunker message board. A lot of contributions. We really appreciate that for sure. He says, have you had a chance to watch Lipo's junior film? If so, what's your take? Talking about Ashton Lipo. I don't know if it might be Lepo. I've not asked him. Macklin goes on to say there are not many offensive tackles in the rivals top 20 from the state of Michigan. The state of Michigan top 20. He says, is Lepo the best? I've not seen all of them, but you're right. There are not a lot of offensive tackle candidates. Lepo is interesting. 6'7", 265. Michigan State offered him a scholarship a week or 2 ago. He also has offers from Baylor, Indiana, and Cincinnati. He's not currently in the top 25 in the state of Michigan. I suspect when it's expanded to a top 40 that he'll be in there. Looking at his junior film, he was 240 pounds then. He says he's 265 now, 6'7". And he was a Michigan State fan growing up out of Grand Haven. When I look at him, he's 240, 6'7", 240. He's lean in that junior film. And So, Chris Kapilovic, offensive line coach, they must really like him as a project. They're projecting what they like in him and Kamari Landers, the kid for Dearborn Fordson, a guy that needs to lose weight. Kapilovic obviously is big on projecting people and seeing the footwork and what they think can be done with him with the strength and conditioning at Michigan State. So he's lean. He's got thin legs for an offensive lineman, but he's got quick feet. His balance is just kind of okay. His balance is maybe not great. That's the type of guy that Iowa used to get. And 6'7", build on him a little bit. Reminds me a little bit of Cole Chewins also when he was at Clarkston as a tight end. I think Chewins was a tight end. But Chewins was like a 6'6", thin guy for an offensive lineman. Put weight on him, and Chewins was pretty good, never got to finish his career. Lepo kind of reminds me of that a little bit. And so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the guy is the next, Jake Long or something. I mean, there's some people out there that just go crazy about every single recruit, and that can't be true, right? I think you lose credibility when you do that. Or every single player in the transfer portal. Oh, this guy's going to help. This guy's going to be great. Some of them will. I don't know. But Lepo's interesting. The thing is, that's junior film. And, guys like Jack Conklin, Eric Fisher, Connor Cruz, their junior film. Cruz's film was good. He just had a different look to him. He had like this hunch going on. So, coaches saw that as a defect a little bit. Didn't get any big offers. Came to Michigan State, started for the Rose Bowl team. Conklin, Fisher, you guys know they became in-state guys that became first-round draft choices, 2-star recruits. Gray shirts was Conklin. So I'm not one to close the door on offensive linemen, especially with that kind of frame with good feet. So Lepo's interesting and maybe is the best offensive tackle prospect. There's probably others in the state that'll rise up in the fall. But Lepo's good out of Grand Haven. Michigan State answered that offer with the scholarship offer. Is it a, quote, committable offer right now? Not sure. Maybe it is. I've not asked around about that. I can get some information on that, but I'll see what it is. But that's Ashton Lepo out of Grand Haven, an interesting one. I'm hoping to be able to see him at the camps this off season. The T-shirt camps, maybe Michigan State's camp. See him maybe in some regional camps. See some more of that pass protection out of him. See if he's bulked up. It's interesting. Michigan State's in on a lot of offensive linemen. An interesting variety of them. CJ from South Philadelphia says a lot of evaluation going on right now. This is question number 2. He says, from the offensive line recruits being pursued, who are the 2 or 3 that you hope Michigan State is able to land? So Michigan State already has commitments from Brocious, kid from down south, and also Christian Phillips from Georgia. Also CJ from South Philadelphia said last week, had a question about Landers, Bear, and Lepo. How many offensive linemen does Michigan State take? And he says, who do you like most out of those offensive line offers? I've not looked at all the film. Bear, the kid from Ohio, Ryan Bear, is really interesting. 6'6", 300. Did a story on him at SpartanMag.com a couple of weeks ago. He's a 3-star, a rising 3-star, number 22 player in Ohio. East Lake High School offers from Michigan State, Virginia, West Virginia, Illinois, Minnesota, Indiana, Duke, Kentucky. Ohio State's looking at him. Ohio State's kind of keeping him warm. He had a virtual visit with Michigan State February 7th. He's had virtuals with Virginia, Cincinnati. He's big. He's quick. He's a physical force. I like Bear a lot. He's a legit top 25 guy in Ohio. Good lateral quickness and straight line athleticism. Bends his knees well. I think he bends his knees better than Christian Phillips. Am I allowed to say that? Bends his knees well. Quick off the line of scrimmage when pulling on counters and powers. His quickness, lateral quickness, it's going to make him a good with outside zone blocking, reach blocking. There's not a lot of film of him, pass protection, so I'd like to see him in some of the camps this summer also. I've watched Bear a lot, and I think he's pretty good. Landers out of Fordson. He's got to lose a lot of weight, but he's got quick feet. It makes you wonder. And he's got power, too. I mean, he's like windshield versus bug with his power. I mean, he's got power. So it makes you wonder if he gets some of that unnecessary weight shed and tightened up. Kamari Landers out of Fordson is interesting. And Landers is a guy that I'm not sure the previous staff would have offered. That wasn't their taste. They didn't like guys with excess weight on the line. Landers has some. He knows it. That's a good thing. He knows it. So now other offensive linemen, you guys are probably aware of Keontae Goodwin. Some of you might be aware, 6'8", 305. He's a big-time 4-star, top 100 guy from Indiana. Interesting to see a top 100 offensive lineman from Charlestown, Indiana. Number 69 in the nation. He has offers from Alabama, Ohio State. He's saying good things about Tucker. Tucker's got his ear, but I'm just not sure that, he says he wants to visit, but I'm just not sure Michigan State is really in the top 5 there. I mean, Michigan State would have to have a big season this fall, and he might decide before that. I think it's Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State type of thing. Hem Holt for Rivals.com did an article about him a couple of, last week, and when he was at the Best of the Midwest, and Goodwin mentioned a few schools, 6, 7 schools, never mentioned Michigan State. If you ask him about Michigan State, he says good things about Tucker, but Michigan State as a program just might not be there yet. But Tucker gets the ear of some of these guys. There's Andrew Chombley from Arkansas, 6'7", 292, 3-star, long legs. He does bend his knees well, decently quick when he's run blocking. Arkansas making him a priority. Grayson Maines out of Sewanee, Georgia, 6'5", 265. I've not watched his film yet. Braden Miller out of Colorado, 6'7", 290. His brother plays at Stanford. His top group is Michigan State, Stanford, Michigan, Nebraska, Kansas State. I've not watched his film yet either. There's the Olivari kid from Massachusetts. Paul Konerdijk did a story on him last week, 6'4", 290. He's like an under-the-radar guy, like a no-star guy. Offers from Ivy League schools and Colorado State. Michigan State likes him. They've offered him. I've not watched his film yet. There's Deuce McGuire, Danny McGuire from Chicago, Marist, number 8 player in Illinois, number 1 offensive lineman in Illinois. He's a high 3-star. Although we've seen on him his sophomore film, there was no high school football in Illinois last fall. They're getting ready to kick it off. Spring football in Illinois in the next couple of weeks. And that's going to be interesting to see if more Illinois players get more closely evaluated because they're one of the few players playing in the spring. I don't know. His sophomore film, McGuire, I think he plays a little bit high, which is not uncommon for 10th graders. And I don't mean like Michael Ray Richardson either. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying his pad level's a little bit high. And, sometimes his feet could come along a little quicker, but, he's a 10th grader. Sometimes guys tap into some athleticism when they get a little bit older. So McGuire is one to watch. But Michigan State's already offered him. Then there's that Alawadi, Yasser Alawadi from Park Ridge, Illinois, Maine East High School, 6'8", 295, number 15 player in Illinois, number 3 offensive lineman in Illinois. Now, he bends his knees okay, seems to post really well. But again, he'll have film coming out this spring. Sully Weidman out of Brookline, Massachusetts, 6'5", 300 high, 3-star, number 3 player in Massachusetts. The first day of phone calls, February 1st, Michigan State called him. So did Pittsburgh. So did UConn. Not the most highly recruited guy, but sometimes you can get players out east that are kind of interesting. I've not watched his film either. You're asking me which one I would want. I've not watched all of them yet real closely. But I think Bear is someone that I think would be good. Now, Goodwin, everybody wants him, but I'm not sure it's realistic for Michigan State. Michigan State is offering a lot of people like a lot of schools do. And some of those offers are offers that I would call pie-in-the-sky offers, meaning they're not going to have a shot at them, but they just go ahead and make an obligatory ceremonial offer. I don't think Goodwin is quite pie-in-the-sky because he does really listen to Tucker. And Tucker, Tucker's got a presence. Tucker's got some charisma. You can probably pick it up when you watch his Zoom interviews with alumni. Not so much the press conferences, but when he's just doing his thing with the Zoom conferences, the alumni conference that are out there a little bit on YouTube, or even his when he did the radio show when he would have a player on as a guest. There's something about him. There's something about Mel Tucker, and you've probably picked up on this. There's something about Mel Tucker that'll make you feel good about you when he's talking to you. And he knows his football. Everybody knows that. He's worked for Saban 3 times. Defensive coordinator, NFL. National championship. Defensive backs coach. Played for national championship as a coordinator for Georgia. Everybody knows his resume, right? But he's also a salesperson. Nick Saban is a salesperson. Different type of salespeople. But there's some... Tucker can make you feel good about you. So I'm not surprised that Keontae Goodwin, something about Tucker resonates with him. But trying to beat Ohio State, Alabama, it's going to be tough. But Bear, I think, is a guy that would be in there. I've got to see some more. All these guys, this is junior film offensive linemen. None of them check every single box. Bear comes close. Yeah, I've not seen some of these other guys. So let's go over here to the chat area. I'm going to go off and I'm going to send a tweet here. Let people know this nonsense is going on. It would be in there. A little feedback here. See some more. A little feedback. A little bit of dead hair here. Hey, if you're new, if you just came in, my name is Jim Comparoni, SpartanMag.com publisher since back in 1874. Become a subscriber to this particular YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up. Become a subscriber. We'll give you an attaboy. Also, we need subscribers at SpartanMag.com. If you're not one, join the fun. Become a subscriber. If not, just give it a 30-day free trial. Head over to SpartanMag.com. Click on the red banner at the top. Find out all the details there. And we would appreciate it. Let's see. Live right now. Let me change this. Do this. Sorry to make you wait. Ran into a little bit of a problem here, which never happens here, right? We're a little bit primitive. We're not afraid to admit that. If I could post it, I'm probably just going to ask somebody there. Here it is. There it is. Wouldn't come up. It's commercial free. That's what happens. Normally, with a talk show, you go to commercial, and I do it during a commercial, and I've got a cough button. There's no commercials here other than talking about the product that we work for. Let's go over here to the chat area. Appreciate all the thumbs ups we have so far. Spartan MD, ladies and gentlemen of Sparta, he says, Old Tuck says, welcome to the large metatarsal. He is the big toe. I should have done this when we were talking about basketball. Should have had that backdrop. Donnie, the Pistons fan, says, big time opportunity for high value wins here at the end of the season. No question about that. And we talked about it in the podcast last night. 6 games left. If they can go 3-3, I think that puts them on the bubble. Maybe not over the top, but it'll put them in the conversation. Because if you win 3 games, that means you've beaten. I mean, Maryland beat Rutgers today. Maryland right now is probably in, and Rutgers is 8-9 in the Big Ten. I don't know. I mean, Indiana's borderline. Going 3-3 means you're beating Indiana and Maryland theoretically, and that's going to be difficult. Maryland's playing well right now. Illinois, Ohio State. If Michigan State had a little more of its crap together earlier, they wouldn't have taken on as many losses. But it's kind of understandable what was going wrong given the circumstances. I mean, understandable in some ways. I mean, it's their fault they put together the roster. They have what they have. They weren't able to work all their secret sauce like they normally do. Nobody else does. Nobody else had that opportunity also. Michigan State maybe had less of an opportunity than some teams. But, because of the shutdown that Michigan State had for 2.5 weeks. But other teams have had that too and have bounced back fine. But, it just seems like they might be on the cusp of breaking through. They played pretty well against Purdue. Broke down at the end because of the point guard situation. They handled the point guard situation differently in this game. Maybe they can help them late games if they are good enough to get into a close game here late in the season against some of these opponents. You got Illinois, Ohio State, Maryland. So Michigan State's 11-9. If they go 3-3, that makes them 14-12. That's probably not good enough. If you go 3-3, that's what we were saying last night. If you go 3-3, you probably need to go 2-1 in the Big Ten tournament. That get you to 15-12 or something like that, or 16-13. 16-13 with 12 good losses, probably 12 losses to NCAA tournament teams. I'm counting Minnesota as an NCAA tournament team, but now I'm not so sure. They've lost some games. The only non-NCAA tournament team that they've lost to is Northwestern. Those things add up favorably. Of course, wins in quadrant 1 are big. You need to keep winning. But if you go 3-3, you've picked up you've picked up 3 quadrant 1 wins. You'll have a total of 6 quadrant 1 wins, no matter how you slice it. If you win 3 of your last 6, plus 2 more in the Big Ten tournament. You could walk out of that with eight quadrant 1 wins with a record of 16-13, and 12 of your 13 losses against NCAA tournament teams. That's theoretically, mathematically possible if you go 3-3. If you finish 4-2, then you're 15-11. 16-12 if you go 1-1 in the Big Ten tournament. I think if you go 4-2, you're in. And I mean, that's going to be really hard because you got 4 of your last 6 against teams in the top 5. You got Illinois coming up right now, right? In Illinois, Illinois 16-5, 12-3 in the Big Ten. But they were taken to overtime by Nebraska, and then Donsumu scored 15 straight in overtime. But Nebraska took them to overtime. Northwestern extended them a little bit also. This weekend, Illinois destroyed Minnesota. That might be good for Michigan State. Illinois riding high. They've won 6 straight. Just blew out Minnesota at the barn. Minnesota's been beating everybody at the barn. So Illinois is going to be thinking real highly of themselves. Maybe they've got the right to do so. Maybe they're that good. Or maybe they're full of themselves a little bit. Maybe if you're Michigan State, you're like, okay, maybe we can catch them napping a little bit. Maybe, I don't know. But the thing about Illinois, the teams that have given them some trouble, like Maryland and Nebraska, not great teams. Nebraska took them to overtime. Nebraska has length on the perimeter, defensive length on the perimeter. Illinois plays small. Donsumu, Trent Frazier, combo guard, hits the 3. Adam Miller, the freshman, and then Coburn is the big guy down low, and they do a lot of dribble handoff, weave stuff, dribble handoff, high ball screen roll, get it down to Coburn down to the block. Got to triple team him, maybe double team him. That's an adventure for Michigan State. That'll be a problem. Illinois will go right to it. But will Michigan State try to single coverage Coburn like they did the Purdue people, thinking, well, we'll let Trevion Williams, we'll not let him get his, but single coverage, see if he gets hot, and make sure they're not killing us with inside-out 3-pointers. If Michigan State goes small in the sense that Aaron Henry is playing power forward, but that enables them to have good length on the perimeter. 6'8", Gabe Brown, 6'6", Langford. That's what Nebraska and Maryland had, length out there in the perimeter. Can Michigan State survive on the block, marble against Coburn? Or you just put Bingham on him, put Sissoko on him, put Bingham on him again. Let Kithier chest him a little bit. Kithier did okay in post defense against Trace Jackson Davis, but Coburn's different size dude. Might not be his jam. So Michigan State will probably start off single coverage like they did against Purdue. See if he gets hot, see if he makes him, whatever. And if he starts killing them, then you adjust from there with, ghost double teams, hedge double team, maybe on the dribble. They'll look at the point. They'll look at the film and see what's most effective against Coburn. Do you shoot the double team at him right away? Do you do it on the catch? Do you do it on the first dribble? I don't know that. I've not watched enough, but they'll have a beat on that. But Michigan State will begin the game, I think, single coverage to allow their length on the perimeter to keep to try to discourage the 3-point shot or contest it a little bit. I'm guessing Aaron Henry at the 4, he might maybe. I think I just talked myself out of it in a second and a half there. You just saw it happen. I think Langford guards Donsumu to begin with. That's my guess. Donsumu might be the best guard in the country. If Illinois plays their A game, Michigan State's not winning. But Michigan State needs to play the best game we've seen them play all year. They just played the best half they've played all year. Illinois is playing well. You get a win against them. So Ohio State had all that hype this weekend against Michigan, and Ohio State's good. Ohio State destroyed Michigan State 2 weeks ago. Michigan State was terrible that day coming out of COVID. Terrible, not just in terms of individual skills. They were terrible in terms of team concepts on defense, things that Michigan State has done for centuries, well, for 25 years under Izzo. Just defensive coverages and rotations and communications and tags and helps. They hadn't practiced in a while, and it showed against Ohio State. They were terrible against Ohio State. That's why I thought they were going to destroy Ohio. That's why I thought Iowa was going to destroy Michigan State 2 days later, and I was shocked that Michigan State led for a lot of that game and had a chance to beat Iowa. I still don't know how that happened, other than Michigan State hitting some shots, a lot of shots in the first half. Stunned by that. As stunned by any Michigan State game in years that Michigan State was competitive that day against Iowa, as bad as they looked against Ohio State. My point is, Ohio State, the young 21-year-olds and 19-year-olds of the Ohio State basketball program will be preparing mentally for that Michigan State, that version of Michigan State, that terrible version of Michigan State. Michigan State's better than that version now. Holtman's going to try to tell his players that. He might have trouble getting them to listen. He's a good coach. They're good players. Maybe Michigan State can steal it. They're going to have a 4-day rest. Michigan State's going to have a 2-day prep or a 1-day prep, Tuesday, Thursday. Not ideal, but Michigan State is in survival mode. Can they get some of that 2003 magic? We'll see. I don't expect Michigan State to win both games, but I would not bet my house against it. Yes, you heard me say that. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying tune in and watch it. You might be frustrated. They might get blown out. I'm not sure. But it's Tom Mother freaking Izzo. And sometimes it's a little bit like Hulk Hogan, when he's about ready to tap out, and his hand comes up. Or Jason or Freddy Krueger. Pick your hero, pick your villain, whatever you want to do. Michigan State basketball's been like that sometimes. We will see. Spartan MD is the sixth man. Let's go over here to the chat area again. Jacob Terry says, Van Sumeren is hella athletic. Are you talking about Alex Van Sumeren or Benson Van Sumeren? The younger one or the older one? The older one, the linebacker, just committed to Michigan State to transfer. Was an inside linebacker at Michigan. 255 pounds? Squatty build. Strong. Runs well for all that build. It's an odd look to him. He's a big ball of muscle, runs pretty well. Now, on my stats, I didn't watch Michigan much after the Michigan State game, October 31st, when Michigan State beat Michigan. Going into that game, and the Minnesota game was just one game, but when Van Sumeren came in the game, Michigan's run defense was not as good for that game. I don't know if it was like that all year. When he came into the game, Michigan usually incorporated one of the packages where Michigan would run a 3-4, and they would two-gap, old school middle guard 3-4. Other times they'd one gap with 4 down linemen. He was out in those situations. He was on the field with 4 linemen, one of 2 inside linebackers. He ran okay, had some good hits as you'd expect. Was he good enough to start? Would he have started somewhere else? That's what we're going to find out. Michigan State needs some bodies, needs some depth at linebacker. They got him. Also, that gives Michigan State the inside track to his brother, a 4-star defensive tackle. Both of them very athletic. The younger brother defensive tackle, quick, good quickness and motor, just goes, different type of guy. Brad Fashenko says, checking in from Austin, Texas after a hell of a week. Hope you came through it okay. He says, all good at the residence. We have power, water, no busted pipes, no leaks. Very fortunate. Ready for some SpartanMag Live. Good for you. Glad to hear that. Chris Trinum says, hola. Glad to welcome our bilingual friends. So Chris Trinum, that's good. Jacob Terry says, Alex reminds me of Brian Bressie. I don't know who Brian Bressie is. Got me on that one, Jacob. Hayden Vischer, Angelo Gross, Harold Joyner, enthusiast, says, I hope we can get Cyrus Moss or Khalif Edwards. We need more athletes. You really, Angelo Gross enthusiast really digs down deep into that recruiting bucket. He watches it closely. You're right about athletes, though, and they will be recruiting more, usually one more defensive back per recruiting class than the old staff used to, and one fewer linebacker over the course of time because they run a 4-2-5. Jacob Terry says, why didn't we go after Kuntz, the Penn State? Kuntz. Got to watch myself there. Kuntz, the Penn State tight end transfer. I'm not sure. I don't know the answer on that one. Big Will says, any chance Izzo makes a change to his staff and hire another assistant after the season? I would like someone to help with the offense. They could change, bring somebody in, but Izzo, they're going to run with what they do. And they've changed a few things over the years. They're not as, with the shorter shot clock, they're a little bit more ball screen, read, react, screen roll, replace, drive, kick. Sometimes they still do some sets, but not as many sets as they used to because of the shot clock. Yeah. It's not like you're going to go out and remember when dribble drive motion was the big thing when Calipari was doing that? Well, actually, he just had a bunch of NBA players. That's why that thing worked. So, need some players. If you're looking for an assistant coach to come in and revamp the offense, I don't think that's going to happen. Could there be a change? Yeah, I think there could be a change, possibly. Angelo Gross enthusiast, 43-inch vertical at 253 pounds. Yeah, that's what they say. Vertical measurements and vertical jumps are done differently at different places. NFL, they see how high you can reach and then how high can you jump. There's other places where it's how high can you get your feet off the ground. That's not really a vertical jump. So that might be what that is. I don't know. But 43 is a great vertical jump. I got my questions about that, but he's a good athlete. Don Straight on board sipping Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. Good for you, Don. Take your word for it. Thanks again for the personal sponsorship. We've got Chris Trinum saying, at Jacob Terry, a few of the scouting guys did follow him, but no idea if they actually actively pursued him. I'm glad when we've got friends helping friends on this. Thanks, Chris, for checking that out. Making it rain. Hayden Vischer, Money Parade, Terrence. Good to have Terrence here. Terrence is fired up. Jacob Terry says, do you know who's leading for him? I don't understand that question right now. Spunky181 says, hey, what's up? Smash the like button. People thank you, Spunky. Terrence says, whoa, money is dropping hard tonight. Appreciate it. Don coming in strong. Odds that Watts will transfer. Gordon Tonona wants to know. Odds that Watts will transfer. Izzo said that a lot of players are being evaluated, quote unquote. Izzo likes Watts a lot as a kid. I mean, Izzo likes just how competitive he is. So Izzo wants to keep him. They came into this year thinking Watts might blow up and go to the pros. That obviously has not happened. The ability to transfer right away, I mean, that's a kettle of fish there. And Michigan State's got some guys that might be looking around. I mean, they're happy to be here. They like each other. But some of those guys want more playing time for obvious reasons. So a lot of it's going to depend on what Watts does here at the end of the season. If he has more games like he did yesterday, getting 26 minutes and expands, then I think he sticks around. But that there's going to be cooks in the kitchen trying to get a foot in the door to upset the apple cart, if I can use 3 different metaphors in one sentence. That's the way it is. I mean, Izzo, they had to play defense on that a lot, with a lot of players over the years. Kept a lot of them. Question number 3 from the mailbag. CGM from Cincinnati, Ohio. He says, Jim, anything new on the Amani Bates recruitment and reclassifying for 2022? It's been very quiet on that front, he says. He says Michigan State's already lost the commitment from the Canadian kid, Boachi, who was looking to reclassify. I know Bates was always a question, but it would be tough to lose 2 5-star type recruits. He says also recruiting a point guard transfer for next year. Don't believe we can rely on Lawyer and Hogard to play at the Big Ten championship level. Plus, it allows Rocket to go back to the 2-guard, more of a natural position. I don't doubt that possibility that they could look for a point guard transfer. That's if things don't work out here with Watts here at the end of the year. A lot of that's going to be determined here in the last couple of weeks and how things look. I mean, it's final exam time for the season, for these players, for a lot of those things. You asked about Bates. No, I've not heard anything, and it has been quiet. And they do keep things very close to the vest. And if you ask around around people that would know, they Izzo gets in there and he knows, but not many others do. And they keep it, Garland is in there, of course, but they're quiet about things in the Bates camp. And I'm assuming he's going to want to reclassify and get that pro career going soon. But if you're Bates, are you looking at the point guard situation at Michigan State and wondering, who's going to be distributing the ball to me? If Watts had been really good at it this year, that would kind of answer that question. He's close with Gabe Brown. If Brown were blowing up, come in, share all that stuff. You have Jay Nakins coming in. Everybody knows that they kind of had some situations when they played together at Ipsy Prep earlier in the season. They're working on ironing that out. Izzo's been pretty good at ironing things like that out over the years, and this is going to take some diplomacy. That's redundant, I know, but I couldn't think of another word for diplomacy after I already said diplomatic. Izzo needed some diplomacy way back in the old days with Mateen Cleaves and Charlie Bell. Those two guys were rivals, and they saw each other a lot. Now, Akins and Bates were just on the same team for a little while, whatever. But if you're Bates and you're thinking Akins is going to come in as the point guard, Michigan State's got to figure that out. And Michigan State's having a bad season. I've not heard anything. You're right. It's quiet, but I've not heard anything. I don't think anyone has. Question number 4. But, I mean, there's nothing to suggest that there's a problem. I'm just, you just never know. You never know in that part of the sport. Big Don from DeWitt says, hi, Jim. Great war room report and coverage in general, as always. Have you heard anything about the Michigan State football conditioning workouts? Any word on player gains in weight and strength? No. You know, they're working out. Not heard anything. I'm hearing the receivers and the running backs looking nice and skilled. You know, the Matt Dotson thing, sustained an injury, and we reported that in the war room a couple of days ago that he's told teammates that he's going to retire because it's just been too much. You know, he was excited to come back and play, but then it happens again. He missed last year, the last half of the season with a knee. The year before, missed the last 1/3 of the season with an Achilles. He's blowing fan belts. He's blowing tires. I think that's it. He told people that's it. Now, it's not been announced publicly, so there's always that chance, like a Kyle Arns situation. When Kyle Arns hurt his ankle that day in the Big Ten tournament against Michigan, I mean, he thought he was done. His parents thought that was it. It had been too. But then the reports came back a little bit better, and next thing you know, he's playing the next year. So when things happen right then, he told his teammates he was done. Dotson did, but they've not announced anything, and I don't know. I hope Dotson's not mad at me for putting that out there. Tried to reach out to him, but it's hard. You know, they're not. You can't really contact players right now. You have to go through the university if you want to interview a player. So it's a tough situation. Went with it in the war room. Didn't put it on a headline out front, just for our people in the message board. I know that's different, but then it's not different. I don't know. It's what we did. Don says, another brutal start yesterday in basketball. Those last 30 minutes were the closest to Spartan basketball that I've seen all year. He says, assess where they are after yesterday and obvious point guard issues aside. What do you feel this team is most lacking? Went through a lot of that stuff a little bit earlier. Went through a lot of it aside from point guard. You know, they're lacking consistency, and that's a catch-all word for anything. But you know how it is. I mean, Bingham played well yesterday. Next game, he won't play well. Marble didn't play well yesterday. Against Purdue, he did play well. You know, so it's up and down with too many guys. And that might be a product of playing so many guys. They might have been better off only having a 9-man playing group and just investing those minutes in everybody, and you just are what you are. And you ride it out. And maybe you can do that if you have more cupcakes in the preseason and you can slowly build into it. I don't know, but the lack of the point guard situation and just consistency at a lot of places. I mean, if Langford had played like that against Purdue, they win that game. You know, Hauser, I'm not sure what's going on there. That's why I draw that comparison to Adam Ballinger in 2003. You're expecting him to be a 45% three-point shooter like it was at Marquette. That's not happening. Meanwhile, he's getting pushed around a little bit underneath the boards. Nothing against him. He's trying hard. He's working hard. But they had to make a hard decision with Adam Ballinger when he was a senior. And I'm wondering about the leash at the 4 position. Because if Henry's doing this as a 4, whose minutes is he going to take? Hall and Hauser is who you have to think of. And, you know, Hall has some good moments here and there, becomes a starter, and he's had 2 milk carton games. And Don says, one last comment. He says, how the heck did Joey Hauser go from surprising with his rebounding ability early in the season to hopelessly a soft version out there that he is right now? I just answered that one. He's working on it, you know, but hey, it's crisis management time right now. It's must-win situations. Got to play your best. Question number 5, Solo Beer Guy from Parts Unknown says, of the tight ends currently in the transfer portal, who would you like to see Michigan State get and is a good fit here? You know, you can only go by the tight ends in the portal that Michigan State's coaches are following on Twitter. Because if you reach out to players that are in the portal, they are quiet. It's a complete inverse of recruiting. A lot of times recruits like to do interviews. They like to get more schools to know about them or whatever. But once they go to a school and transfer, at that point, the coaches have the power. When recruits are recruits, the recruits have the power, and they can do interviews or whatever. But when they get in that portal, the coaches have the power, and the coaches might want somebody. They might not. They might not want a guy who's doing a lot of talking about what schools he likes. So transfers keep things very quiet. And then once they commit to transferring, then they really clam up. You might notice, Chester Kimbrough, Jarrett Horst, Drew Jordan, the guys that Michigan State has. Even Van Sumeren. Van Sumeren made his decision, and I don't think he's done another interview since. Maybe he did locally somewhere, I'm not sure. And I was messaging with him. I asked him a couple of comments after he made his decision, didn't hear back from him. The night before, he had a very good conversation with him, and that was part of the story we did over at in the War Room article on Saturday morning. And all of a sudden, nothing. No response. Sent him another question. No response. Then I sent him a message. I said, blink twice if you've been told not to do any more interviews. He didn't even blink twice. Nothing. But once you commit to a team, I'm pretty sure a lot of these coaches are like, hey, we're glad. We're happy you're with our family. I'm glad you're in the program. But now that you're in the program, our rule is none of our players right now can do any interviews unless it's through Michigan State's public relations people. That's the way it is around the country. So I think you're seeing, when players, when transfers make a decision, they go off the grid in terms of their comments. So also, it's kind of hard to get information. They'll talk a little bit off the record. Yeah, I'm getting some interest, but I'm just trying. Some of these guys that are in the portal are hoping to get recruited by Michigan State. So it's kind of like they've got a little acorn in the palm of their hand, and they're trying to get a squirrel to bite out of it, and they don't want to make a bunch of commotion and say, "Hey, I'm hoping Michigan State takes me. Yeah, I'm in the portal. I've got an offer from South Alabama and an offer from Miami of Ohio, but I'm really hoping for Michigan State." A guy in the portal, it's not smart to do that. So I've some guys will be like, "Yeah, I can't really say, or I'm hearing something, but I don't want to say anything." But I do know, Michigan State followed some of these guys like, Nolan Given is a tight end from San Diego State, 6'3", 260. He's interesting because he's out of San Diego State. He's in the portal now. He's originally from Berkeley High School, Berkeley, Michigan. He's followed by the Michigan State coaches. And he transferred to San Diego State from Ball State. He was at Ball State. He started 22 games at Ball State, had 6 touchdown receptions. At Ball State, he had 51 catches. So I'm not sure why he left Ball State, but he went to San Diego State, maybe seeking greener pastures. I don't know. Went out to San Diego State and played in pretty much every game, but didn't get much action in terms of receptions. He had 3 catches. He played 290 snaps last year, so more of a blocking tight end. The run blocking graded out at 50.2 by Pro Football Focus, which is not great. He was targeted 7 times in the season, had 3 catches and 2 drops. The Pro Football Focus thing, that's not the end-all, be-all, but I just figured I'd throw that number out there. But he's a guy that, in the MAC was a good functional tight end. Michigan State last year could have used a good functional MAC tight end, even if he is 6'3", but he's 260. He's a burly dude. I've not seen any film. But Michigan State's following him, and he's a Michigander, so that one makes some sense. I think Michigan State is in there with the kid from Kentucky, 6'5", 250. I can't pronounce his last name. Nick Ognenovich. I sounded it out. How'd that go? Nick Ognenovich, originally from Fort Lauderdale, 6'5", 250. He's followed by the Michigan State coaches. He entered the portal January 20th. He played 7 games for Kentucky last year's redshirt freshman, mostly on special teams. It's a possibility. Michigan State's in there. They're establishing contact. Who would I like to have? I'd like to have the guy that committed to Western Kentucky, the guy from the University of Buffalo, Zach Lefevre, 6'6", 235, third-team All-Mid-America Conference, 13 catches this year in an abbreviated season. Back in 2019, he had 21 catches. So a serviceable 6'6", Mid-America Conference, third-team All-MAC tight end, Zach Lefevre. That one, on paper, that one sounds good to me. He's committed to Western Kentucky on January 13th. Was Michigan State late on that one? I don't know. Michigan State's following him now. I don't know what happened there. Western Kentucky went after him. In Western Kentucky, their recruiting pitch is, we throw the ball more than any team in the country. Come here, you'll catch passes. So that's why Lefevre went there. There's the other guy from Syracuse, Aaron Hackett, 6'3", 237, has 9 career touchdown receptions, 19 starts at Syracuse. Why is he leaving Syracuse? I'm not sure. 37 catches in 45 career games, and he committed to TCU. Michigan State's following him also. Was Michigan State late? I'm not sure, but you can get those guys flipped. They don't sign anything all the way to the time they enroll. So Michigan State is in on some of those guys. But the guy that looks the best to me on paper is Lefevre, but he's going to Western Kentucky apparently. There'll be others, but Michigan State is in need of tight ends, and I said that last week before the dots and stuff, before I came out with that information, that Michigan State's need for tight end had become more pressing. So, yeah, they're busy in the portal there for tight ends. D. Monette from Lansing, Michigan. Question number 6 from the mailbag. He says, I'm curious about the state of the program from the players' perspective, Michigan State football players. He says, how do the players feel about the roster turnover? He says, who is emerging as leaders? Who are emerging as leaders? And what's their opinion on winter workouts? Are you hearing a different vibe from these winter workout sessions when compared to the previous regime? Thanks in advance. I'm sure it's different, but not hearing anything specific yet. We'll probably have a chance to talk to some players just before spring practice, and then they can give us a little more information on that. But that was already coming to light, last summer into August, and then during those 5 weeks when the plug was pulled on the football season, and Michigan State went into January workout mode in September. A lot of the players were saying that they loved the new workout regime. Guys added mass in a short period of time. They liked it, so I'm assuming it'll be more of the same. But no, I've not heard anything yet because we're not supposed to. There's no interviews right now. Who's emerging as leaders? Now, leaders is an interesting question. But you also asked, how do the players feel about the roster turnover? There's some guys that have been asked to leave the program that were sad about it and not happy with it. So you're going to have that when there's a changeover. When you commit to a coach and that's your coach and a new coach comes in, and even if you might not have flourished under this coach, you always have it in mind that you would have been better if that coach would have stayed. That's human nature. And there have been a lot of players that have been escorted to the portal, and there's a lot of changeover. Some of those guys, it's not. I mean, it's very business oriented. It's tough. It's competitive. It's competitive every day. Some people are okay with that. Some people liked it the other way. Michigan State had some success the other way. They can have they can have success this way too, but it's a change. And I'd be lying to you if I said everybody says it's Mary Poppins rainbows. It's not. But they're trying to get some iron sharpening iron, as they say. In terms of leaders, now that's a difficult one because I'm not sure there are a lot of natural leaders here, and there has been so much turnover. Secondly, these players are spending so much time apart from each other in the last 12 months. 11 months. They're away from each other so much that collective bond of unity is not going to be as strong. And that's going to be that way at a lot of programs. But Michigan State's has that situation. At the same time, Michigan State is experiencing a major changeover in faces in the program. 15, 20 players go to the portal. So far, 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever are coming in from the portal. The number of new faces, a transfer portal quarterback. Van Sumeren might end up becoming the middle linebacker. He might take Antoine Simmons' spot. He might be so you might have a transfer portal quarterback and a transfer portal middle linebacker, the two leadership positions. Xavier Henderson at safety he's going to have to be a leader. He's got that type of personality. He's been a pretty good player. And there aren't many other leaders out there. I think Drew Beasley maybe. I mean, I don't see Jacob Panishuk being that type of guy. I don't see Noah Harvey being that type of guy because he's got to get comfortable with his game first. I think he's a fired-up guy maybe, but I don't know if he's totally comfortable with his own game enough to be a leader. Klein, he's moving into the starting lineup. Jalen Hunt played a year. He's just a sophomore. You got Slade in there. Mallory. on defense. Offensive line, Matt Allen was a guy that is somewhat of a leader, but, was injured last year. He's excited to come back, but I'm not sure he beats out SpartanMag for the starting job. I'm not sure he could be a leader if he doesn't win the starting job. So they need, someone on the offensive line to emerge. A lot of times leaders do come from the offensive line, Jack Allen style. I don't know who that could be. SpartanMag, maybe. Our Curry's a senior, maybe. But I don't know if that's his personality. Russo coming in if he starts at quarterback, can he do it? I don't know enough about his personality. Maybe he can be that type of guy. It's hard for a transfer to come in and become a leader, especially in this climate where a transfer comes in and he can't mix with everybody. It's hard for him to become a leader. Russell Wilson, when he transferred as a grad transfer to Wisconsin, was a captain in year one. Within 3, 4, 5 months, became a leader. Special dude, though, right? So I think, leadership is going to be a challenge. It's going to be a real challenge for player leadership with this group. Just there's so much change and turnover and the circumstances. In terms of natural leadership, Connor Hayward is a natural leader. He was a leader in that running back room. They're excited about him, but you see he's limited as a player. Jaden Reed might have some leadership ability, but he got in a little bit of trouble off the field, right? Jalen Naylor, I don't know Jalen Naylor is a fun, effervescent personality. It's a great interview. Is he a leader? I'm not sure. Player leadership could be a problem. Could be a problem. Question number 7, MSU Pat from Atlanta says, Comp, do you see the Michigan State staff doing anything different in terms of recruiting in the state of Michigan for 2022 and beyond, other than having more of a head start in 2021? He says, I feel they may have to be more creative to overtake Kentucky, Penn State, Michigan now with Michigan hiring Bellamy. Just curious on your thoughts. I think Michigan was smart to hire Bellamy in the short term, and I think they hired Bellamy as a preemptive strike or even as an answer, knowing that Mel Tucker and his troops were going to be coming in harder in Southeast Michigan. I think that was definitely an answer to Mel Tucker and the things Michigan State's doing more aggressively in recruiting. And I think Michigan State has ironed out some of the political problems they had in Southeast Michigan. I don't know that for a fact. I'd like to ask around a little bit, but I think things that were a hang-up in the past have been smoothed over. And I think Michigan went and got Bellamy because Tucker was coming in hard. Okay. Kentucky. Now, Penn State just lost Banks, their key Detroit recruiter, to Tennessee. So I would imagine Tennessee is going to come in and start recruiting well in Detroit. Kentucky's been solid in Detroit. They're going to remain solid in Detroit. Michigan State wants to recruit well in Detroit. They're going to get some players out of there. I don't think they think it's do or die. I don't think they're going to, withdraw into a fetal position, sucking their thumb if they lose some players in Detroit. But I think they're going to do better in Detroit, Southeast Michigan, and throughout the state. A little bit better in Southeast Michigan than they had been starting this year. But what are they doing differently? You've seen, and we've talked about it a lot, Michigan State on social media, first of all, is really out there and aggressive and shiny and interesting and exciting on social media. And that's a big part of your pitch right now because players can't come and visit. So it's long been said that athletics or football is the front porch of the university. Well, right now, social media is the walk-up and the awning of the front porch, if I can mix metaphors again. Question number 8, Spartoons out of Albion, Michigan says, who will be the next 2 or 3 Michigan State football commitments? Is there a recruit out there that would create a positive domino effect? Positive dominoes? I mean, a quarterback would. They're on those big quarterbacks down south, Duffy and Horn. But that would do it, but I'm not sure that's going to happen anytime soon. I don't think Michigan State's going to get either one of them, but they're in there with them. They're trying. Who's the next one? I mean, Kamari Landers is close, the offensive lineman from Dearborn Fordson. But he's thinking no later than Mother's Day, so he's holding off for now. Michigan State likes him. I'm not sure Michigan State's pushing for a commitment right now. They had a virtual visit with him 2 weeks ago. Braden Bruss, the linebacker from Glendora, California. His parents went to Michigan State, did an article on him a couple of weeks ago. I think Michigan State's in solid shape with him. He's another guy that only has sophomore film, and we put the film on Underground Bunker message board. And He can go. He's good. And California, he's another guy like the Illinois guys. He does not have junior film yet. I think there's a good chance his junior film is going to be really good. So he's been to campus a few times. He's been to Michigan State bowl games. He grew up a Michigan State fan. He's way out in California. I think Michigan State's going to be hard to beat for him if Michigan State keeps the heat on him and goes after him. I'm just not sure he wants to make it. He's not indicated he wants to make a decision right now. But after when you get into spring football and get into April, for whatever reason, commitments start happening quick around that time, and I think those guys are candidates to be Spartans. There's also a musical chairs aspect to it. Also, if players start to think that, Michigan State is probably the place I want to go, and if I wait too much longer, that scholarship slot might be filled. All of a sudden, boom, guys can start popping a little bit. Keep an eye on Popeye Williams, the defensive end from Westfield, Indiana, ranked number 9 player in the state of Indiana. Michigan State's serious about him. He's serious about Michigan State. 6'3", 225 defensive end type of guy. High 3-star. Michigan State offered last August. He camped at Michigan State back in 2019. He had an offer from Alabama, might have been the ceremonial offer. But I like him, his film, and I'm not surprised that he has offers from Arkansas, Boston College, Kentucky, Louisville, Minnesota, Nebraska, Penn State, Purdue, Tennessee, Virginia Tech, Wisconsin. He's got some good offers. And he can really turn the corner. He's got strong lower body, big legs like a running back, can turn the corner for defensive end. I compared him a little bit to Dwayne Smoot. I don't know if you remember him from Illinois. He's got a little bit of Jonal St. Deacon to him in him also, but stronger. And he's quick with his counter moves to the inside. He's got closing speed. And he's got a good takeoff as he turns the corner. Live legs. And, he's not just an edge guy. Unlike St. Deke, this guy, Popeye Williams, at the high school level, shows the ability to bull rush, disengage. He's got that strong upper body, too. I like Popeye Williams. I think State's in solid shape there. Question number 9, Amos53 says, how is the staff looking at the corner position with the depth issues? How hard will it be to insert transfers versus playing true freshmen? At the corner, I'm looking at, inside of the slot. I think that remains Angelo Gross, I think. I think he's the more physical of the three. And it's good to have a little more physicality closer to the ball. You're asking how hard will it be to insert transfers versus playing true freshmen. A lot of coaches have said over the years that the farther away you are from the ball, the better chance you can help right away. And corners can play as true freshmen a little more regularly than maybe an interior defensive tackle, they've said over the years, and that's pretty much been true. Same with offensive line. Usually, wide receivers, maybe tailbacks, the farther you are from the ball, those guys play earlier. So corners can play earlier. I think Charles Brantley, the kid from Venice, Florida, 4-star, I think his high school film was great. And physically, he's a hitter, can move. I would imagine if he picks things up well and shows up and toes the line, and I've got no reason to think that he won't, I think he's got a really good chance to get in the playing group. Now, I got to say, over the years, I've not been very good at forecasting which true freshmen are going to play early. I thought Tommy Guardo was going to play early this year because Michigan State had no tight ends coming back, and I liked his film. I thought he had good quickness. He put on some weight. And, I don't know. I'm not at practice, but they got punters playing tight end. And Tyler Hunt did pretty good. And Evan Morris, okay. But so I was wrong about that one. Don't give up on Guardo. I think he's going to be fired up for the spring. We'll see. But position of need is corner. I think Charles Brantley got to be the man, right? Got a real good chance. Kalen Gervin, what is it, his 3rd year, 4th year? He's got to get better. But I think Gervin's got a chance to start. He started last year. Harlan Barnett's got some optimism about him. Chester Kimbrough coming in from Florida as a grad transfer. He's not coming in here to sit the bench. So I'm thinking Gervin and Kimbrough, good chance to be starting corners. Angelo Gross in the slot. Charles Brantley pushing for a role. Don't count out Spencer Rowland, the Division III grad transfer from Wheaton College, from Greenville, Michigan. I look at his film, and I know it's Division III, but Division III football is better than high school football, people. I don't know if you realize that or not. And the guy can move, man. move his hips. He's Spencer Rowland. Don't count him out. Michigan State also moved Montori Foster to corner. The other, freshman coming in, you got Antoine Booth. Antoine Booth in Maryland did not have a senior season of football. And I thought his film was just kind of okay. I'm not expecting him to save the world. Stephen Johnson coming in from Venice, Florida. He was mostly a quarterback in high school. And I was like, okay, well, whatever, I guess. And then I saw some of his senior film. He's only like 160 or so. But there were one or two clips of him at quarterback where he accelerated. And, he really accelerated. I was like, oh, okay, I kind of see what they're saying now. But still a little bit of a project. And Barnett's been pretty good with projects at that position over the years. Tony Lippett came in, didn't play any wide receiver or corner, became NFL at both. He was a quarterback in high school. So it might take those guys a little longer. Montori Foster is interesting. He's only been playing football for 2 years. He was a basketball player, played some football. Was it at St. Ignatius, I think? Or St. Ed's? I think St. Ignatius. And boom, had 41 receptions as a senior for one of the best teams in Ohio. All league, all area. Michigan State, with the networking in Ohio, found out about him, brought him in. And then last year got on the field as a gunner. Michigan State trouble with the punt coverage team. By the end of the year, is a little bit better, and he was a gunner. Physical guy. So, need a corner. Montori Foster, play some defense. Okay. Would not shock me if that guy turns out to be a good corner, just because he's a little bit different. But I'm thinking Kimbrough, Gervin, Gross. That's how I think it begins. Now, Rowland, I got to find out if Spencer Rowland is on campus right now. Because if he's able to get there in spring, that could give him a head start over Kimbrough, who's not here yet. I need to find that out with Rowland, if he's going to be here. That's an interesting one. I'm going to write that down because sometimes I'm a little bit forgetful. That's called making a note to yourself. Let's go over here to the, let's see. I think I might need to save those other questions for next time. Yeah, appreciate everybody with the questions that you posted. Probably saving them for next time. Let's go over here to the chat area. We're going to roll through these and call it a night. Appreciate everybody showing up, supporting SpartanMag Live. Marlowe, checking in big. Chris Trinum said, so when we go into the club? Don't know what you mean, Chris. Brad Fashenko says, but whenever you're going, let me know and I'll see you there. Brad Fashenko says, Hayden, great post regarding the transfer portal today. Very informative. I missed that one. I'm going to have to go look at that. I'm not sure what that was over the Underground Bunker message board at SpartanMag.com. Give us a thumbs up if you haven't already. Jacob Terry says, Horn, Denegal, Duffy, who do you have the best chance for? Talking about quarterbacks. I don't know. Horn and Duffy are 4-star quarterbacks. Duffy had Michigan State, in the top 3 or 4, but he did not mention Arizona State. But some people think that that's a smoke screen. He's going to end up at Arizona State. Horn really likes Missouri. I don't know. I've not looked into Denegal a lot yet. I put that one in my notes. And those guys are hard to get a hold of. They're not given much. Well, Horn gives a few comments a little bit. That's where he said about Missouri. And Michigan State made the top 4 for Duffy last week. Duffy's a quarterback from Arizona. He's going to Flint. Bradenton, Florida, IMG now. And it's Penn State, Oregon, Michigan State. I forget the 4th official one, but he did not list Arizona State, but a lot of people think it's going to be Arizona State. Angelo Gross says probably Horn. I don't disagree with that, but I'm not saying Michigan State's the favorite. Chris Trinum says, I don't think anyone knows. 22 recruiting is just kicking off right now. Gordon Tonona says, I would start Henry, Langford, Brown, Kithier, Bingham. Kithier and Bingham. So, that leaves you without a stretch 4. Bingham theoretically can shoot someday, but not this day, not this year. So you've got 2. See, Kithier and Bingham never play together because that leaves you without a shooter at the power forward position. You need a shooter at power forward for screen roll, replacing a lot of the spacing and plays that everybody runs. Jacob Terry says, we offered Denegal this time last year. Yeah, they've been in on him. I'll have to look into that one a little bit more. Angelo Gross, Harold Joyner enthusiast, says Watts, Langford, Brown, Henry, and Sissoko. Sissoko looked great as a rebounder. And running the court, he looked fast. I mean, sometimes when he hits the gas pedal, it's like, whoa. But like as soon as he went into the game, Michigan State ran a play, and he did it wrong. And they had to stop the play and tell him where to go. Freshman missed some time. They've worked on some other things, other more pressing areas, but didn't know the play. But he's got some tools. Spunky181 says, I like the smaller playing group with Lawyer on the bench. Chris Trenham says, I love seeing Gabe getting a ton of minutes. I really hope that he takes advantage of the NCAA giving an extra year. In basketball, we could have him 2 more years. Cannot argue with that. Scott Sebastian says, who is in that picture over your shoulder? That was I'll turn it into a game show. I'll let some people out there, you know who it is. I'll let somebody else let you know, Scott, if you're still with us. Oh, Brad Fishenko did. That's Lynn Shadnoy. Lynn Shadnoy, ladies and gentlemen. Leather helmet, no mask, dirt, grass, packed stadium. Lynn Shadnoy. When he graduated, he was Michigan State's all-time leading rusher. I think he's still like in the top 15 or so. I'm not sure. I mean, back then, keeping stats was like a rumor. Don Strait says, great thought regarding Gabe Brown. Sissoko is also another who will benefit huge from being a free year this year as far as eligibility. I would say Marcus Bingham will benefit also, because Bingham is a guy that should have redshirted in his first year. Now he's getting a red shirt. And, you know, his situation at Michigan State is on again, off again. I mean, he's doing his best. They like him. But, you know, could he seek 2 more years somewhere else? It's possible. I don't know. I mean, they like him. They want to keep him. He likes Michigan State. But I don't know. Anything's possible. Chris Rynham says that the extra year will help Bingham, too, if he stays. And I guess that's what I just said. Straight says, no doubt. Randy R. says, I agree with others, saying Watts, Langford, Brown, Henry, 35-plus minutes with multiple centers. It's going to be really interesting to see if they go in that direction. I know it was just one game in Indiana. I suspect Michigan State. I don't know. Does Izzo go? Does Izzo start Gabe Brown, move Henry to the 4, and try it? I don't know. Trinum says, Comp, you're giving me PTSD. That was my freshman year at Michigan State. Football and basketball were brutal in the regular season. I think you're talking about 2003. Football in 2003. Well, that would have been 2003. Okay, the fall of 2002, that would have been, yeah, that was John L. Smith. That was Bobby Williams' last year. Yeah, that was terrible. That was, you know, the Jeff Smokers situation, all that. Don Strait says, come on, folks, tune in, give Comp a thumbs up. This is good stuff. Thumbs up helps. Thanks, Don. Doors Fan 91 says, I won my NCAA pool in 2003 as I was the only one to pick Syracuse to win it all. Take a bow, Doors Fan 91. Somebody's talking about TJ Ford. Gordon Tonona says, I think everyone underestimated the recovery time of COVID. Don Strait says, we hold these truths to be self-evident. You like that quotation, huh? Detroit Spartan says, hard to argue with Izzo's success in March. Don Strait says, yeah, hell yeah, Jim. I get stoked when you get constitutional. Chris Trinum says, my guy Detroit Spartan in the house. My Philly Spartan brother got Philadelphia, Detroit. Exchanging pleasantries. City of brotherly love and Motown. Jacob Terry says, do we have any chance with Keontae Goodwin? I kind of doubt it. I went over that earlier. Big-time player, offensive lineman, top 100 from Indiana. Ohio State's in there. Alabama's in there. He's interested in Tucker. Just not sure. Like I said, when Hemholt talked to him last week, he mentioned 6 or 7 schools, all blue bloods, didn't mention Michigan State. I apologize if I offend you if I did not mention, if I don't count Michigan State as a blue blood. They have been in the past. What's that look like? What do I got there? Oh, I got Beaumont Tower. We'll go with Beaumont Tower. Gordon Tonone says, I like Comp's analysis. Thanks, Gordon. We're going to finish these up lightning round and we'll be done. Detroit Spartan says, Tuck sold steaks door-to-door in Cleveland. Yes, he did. Rob South says, I know it's still early. I don't know if this is wrong to say, but I feel like Coach Mel Tucker ain't here for the long haul. Rob South is putting it out there. Jacob Terry says, why do you say that? Cartero 917 says, checking in a bit late. Cartero 917. That's Cartero's 917. Hold on. Yeah, that's his third tardy. 3 tardies for Cartero 17. 2 more in detention. Rob South says, just a feeling that I don't like. Laughing out loud. So he's laughing out loud at a feeling he doesn't like. Rob South having an interesting weekend. Jacob Terry says, due to poor play or he leaves for a bigger opportunity with some short success. Jacob Terry, I would say, I know you're asking Rob South that question, but I think it's a solid possibility either way. Detroit Spartan says, if Tuck starts consistently winning 10-plus games, he's gone, no doubt. But we have to target coaches like that. Coach D-type loyalty is extremely rare. Trinum agrees. Rob South says, bigger opportunities for sure. Think he builds up and goes. Chris Trinum says, if successful here, I expect him to get a real go in the NFL. Trinum says, or back to the SEC. I don't think you'd go to the SEC. I mean, yeah, if he won a lot here, he would probably attract a big opportunity down there. But I would think NFL would be more enticing. You know, you just don't see a lot of coaches hopping from big jobs to big jobs these days, especially if they feel appreciated. I mean, if you do well, I mean, there's always the chance that you can go. But I mean, is Georgia or Alabama going to hire him? I mean, no. I mean, is he going to go down there and want to slug with at Ole Miss or something? I don't think so. And Michigan State could pay just as much as an SEC school now. It was different in '99 with Saban. Saban was pouting a lot around here, not getting his way and feeling unappreciated. Had one good season and went to LSU where he could run the university and have turnkey, excellent roster from the get-go every year. So he got what he wanted at LSU. Could run the university, had good talent, won a national championship. Although he tried to change his mind and come back. But I mean, LSU offered a lot of money. Michigan State was talking contract with him, and the talks kind of blew up over at Saban's house late one night. Joel Ferguson was there. McPherson was there. And they arrived with a contract, and they left without a deal, and it didn't go real well. But then he tried to change his mind, and they were like, don't let the door hit you. So they could have kept him, and that was with him knowing that LSU had a lot more, probably more potential than Michigan State. And you know what he thought about Michigan State at the time. He couldn't fix it to where he had the better roster every single week, which is why he didn't do well in the NFL, because in the NFL you cannot ensure that you've got the best roster every week. So different era now, but if he's doing well at Michigan State would not let him leave for an SEC school. NFL could be different. That's if there's a lot of success. That's what you have to hope for in the meantime. Don Stray says, gentlemen, why worry about such now? Yeah, if we were talking about Nick Saban that way right now, Nick Saban would be calling right now. He'd be watching, and he'd be mad. He'd call me up and yell at me. Don't talk about the NFL. Let it die. Why do you care about that stuff? He did call me that one time. We didn't have YouTube back then, but about something that I wrote once. And all I was writing was something about like what I just said. But no, he wouldn't be watching this right now. He has better things to do. But he has ear to the ground pretty good on a lot of things. Detroit Spartan says, Texas offered to make Coach D the highest paid coach in college football, and he did not even consider their offer. That's rare, not to mention the length of the offer. I think it was close to 10 years. Detroit Spartan with the info. Not going to argue with it. Plus, D'Antonio did not have an agent, so he wouldn't have been losing agent percentages. Chris Trinum says, to be honest, if either scenario, guess what guys that means. It means he won a lot here. Detroit Spartan says, yes, we'll worry about that bridge once we have to cross it. Far from it at this point. Rob South says, not a worry, just a feeling, wondering if others feel it too. Detroit Spartan says, you don't have to feel it, Tuck. Tuck told us as much when we interviewed him, unless he can match a premier SEC or NFL offer, which we can't. I don't know. I mean, SEC pays a ton once you've went there and won a lot. But I just think that Michigan State would probably put together a PJ Fleck type of package to keep him. But NFL might be a different thing. Detroit Spartan says his goal has always been to return to the SEC or NFL. Okay. Don Strait says, guys, why worry about a possible scenario that would require a lot of MSU success before it's even a consideration? Hayden Fisher says, Tom, mother freaking Izzo, and March is just 7 days away. Jacob Terry says, hopefully Max Bulla has learned enough from Saban by then and he can take the reins. Max has a long way to go. That's crossed my mind, though, a little bit. Max, smart guy, football guy, more of an introverted guy. I mean, to be a head football coach in college, you got to be an extrovert. You've got to be a politician. Is that Max's bag? I don't know. I mean, D'Antonio was kind of an introvert and was not big on becoming a head football coach. Tressel pushed him out at Ohio State, said, you're ready, go take that Cincinnati job. And Tressel could see that D'Antonio was ready. D'Antonio came at it from a different angle. Kirk Ferentz is kind of like that too. Max Bulla might be a similar personality. I'm not saying it can't be done, but he wouldn't be the cartoon character type head football coach, which you kind of need a little bit. Hayden Fisher says Max Bulla is light years away from being a head coach. Yes, I agree. Detroit Spartan says boosters discuss these things all the time. Oh, Jacob Terry says it was sarcasm. Okay, gotcha. Detroit Spartan says, I'd be shocked if Max was ever our head coach, and he's a friend of mine. Hayden Fisher says, wow, I could really sense that sarcasm. All right, you guys are talking amongst yourselves. Let me see if we got any questions or anything. I'm just going to scan down here. Fashenko says, I really like Sam Horn. I think Missouri leads. Duffy has a shotgun for an arm, Tadona says. I honestly have not looked at their film yet. I know that Michigan State's in the top 4 for those guys. If I was able to get a hold of them, I'd look for film and ask them a little bit about it. Maybe I'll see them in a camp this summer if there's some camps. I'm not sure, but I've not seen their arm yet. I'm sure they've got good arms. I've not looked at it yet. Detroit Spartan says, I cannot imagine Theo playing tight end. Physically, yes. Mentally, not a chance. Chris Trinham says, this was asked on the board, but could Theo Day give tight end a go? He's a big athlete. Physically, yes, he could give it a go, but it's not going to happen, like Detroit Spartan said. Theo Day is quarterback all the way. That's what he wants to do, and it'll either be here or he'll go somewhere else and try it. And I think if he wanted to play college football, I think tight end might be. I don't know if he's wired that way though. He's got the frame for it. Moves his feet well. He's 6'5", but don't think so. Raymond Sebastian says, first time watching live. I like the show. Go Spartans. Good to have Raymond Sebastian here. Chris Trinham says, got it. Hayden Fisher says, not a shot at you, Chris, but I always find it funny that everyone and their mother on the board is always asking if so and so can make the switch to tight end. Yeah, that is the popular position change. Plus, Michigan State needs a tight end, needs some tight end, so that's why. Chris Trinham says, laughing out loud, it's because we are all dying to have the tight ends back in the offense. All right, you guys, I'm proud of you guys all talking amongst yourselves, having a good time. Jesse Adams says Kevin Jarvis could be a leader. In terms of experience, yes, he could. He's going to be a fifth-year senior, fifth-year playing group guy. Possibly. I'm just not sure he's that personality. Brad Vashenko says, what's the backstory on the walk-on punter we were looking at? Just a little communication thing didn't quite match up. Yeah, it was kind of weird. That's all I can say right now. Sorry. Maybe someday. And I won't forget this time. If you ask me about the punter, I'll be able to remember it, but not right now. Hayden Fisher says, Banks went and offered Antonio Gates Jr. earlier today. Did not take long. So that Tennessee, Tim Banks going after Antonio Gates Jr. Gates Jr., his recruitment's been very buttoned up and quiet also. It's an interesting one. Detroit Spartan might know a little bit about that. I'm not sure. Chris Trinum says, my guess on next commitments, Lepo and Landers. Could be. That would give Michigan State 4 offensive linemen. They'd be pretty much done. They could possibly take one more. Interesting group. They could probably get both if they pushed. But they're in on other guys that a little further along, in my opinion, as players. Jesse Adams says, Jesse from Mount Pleasant, what are the chances of Michigan State making the tournament if they go 3-3 and win 2 conference games? Could they play in the first 4? I talked about that a minute ago. All right, what's Michigan State right now? 11-9. 11-9. So 14-12. They go 3-3, and then they go 2-1. That makes them 16-13. Yeah, I had that right. So 16-13. By that time, you would have 5 wins, 5 more Big Ten wins. At least 4 of them are going to be against NCAA tournament teams. The resume, the number of quality wins is going to be solid. The number of quality losses out of the 13 will be solid. See, if they do that, if they go 3-3 and 2-1 in the Big Ten tournament and 16-13, I gotta believe they're in. People have been talking about the Big Ten being the best all year, and I've not looked at all the bracketology and everything. I just think 16-13 with those wins plus Duke, first 4, and like we talked about last night on the podcast, the other thing in the equation that Izzo has hinted about but has not wanted to come out and say is, hey, look around the country. There's always 4 or 5 teams that are on pause because of COVID. A lot of tournament teams. Baylor's on pause right now. Michigan was on pause. Villanova was on pause. A lot of teams have been on pause, right? Rutgers. I mean, there's been a lot of them. So when the week of Selection Sunday, before Selection Sunday, are we going to hear about 4 or 5 other teams? I know that cases are going down nationally, thankfully. But are we going to, wake up one day and, USC and Missouri and, Purdue and Alabama and UConn are all on pause? Well, those are all tournament teams. That's 6 teams I think I listed. Let's say 6 teams are on pause. That'd be a high number for right now. But if those 6 are out, that opens up 6 other slots. Like I said last night, Ivy League is not in it this year, so that's 1 slot. So it's 1 slot easier to make it this year than usual. That being said, Michigan State is a long way away from being last 4 in or first 4 out at this point. But if you win 5 games between now and Selection Sunday, including 2 in the Big Ten tournament, I think they're in 16-13, 3-3. Maryland's going to be tough, though. I mean, Maryland looked good against Rutgers today. They're all going to be tough. Beating Indiana again is going to be tough. Illinois, Ohio State, they're all going to be tough. Michigan looks really good, obviously. Though, like I said last night, I think Michigan is a lot better than Michigan State. We can all see that. But you've got a better chance of stealing a game against Michigan playing them back-to-back. Just the nature of back-to-back athletics. Detroit Spartan says, Brantley's the real deal, can contribute now, and we're going to need him to contribute now. Yeah, Brantley, 4-star, true freshman, corner. Going to have a real good chance to play early. St. Ed's. St. Ed's was... Who are we talking about? All right. Cartero 970 says, I really like A.J. Kirk at safety. I do too. He's a hitter. He's fierce. A.J. Kirk's a Mark D'Antoni type of safety. You guys will like him. I agree with that. Jesse Adams says, second question. If you could see football going out and playing a big game in non-conference going forward like an SEC or Big 12 school, I would like home and home with maybe Kentucky or South Carolina. I'd like Tennessee maybe. The ones you list are interesting. South Carolina plays Clemson every year, though, so they don't get real creative with another non-conference game. So South Carolina's out. Kentucky is available. Michigan State and Kentucky, I don't know if they've played in football since, was it 1956? Bear Bryant brought Kentucky to Michigan State, and Bear Bryant won. I think the score was like 7-3 or something like that. Kentucky became good, and he got the head coaching job at Texas A&M from there. I think that was like right after Michigan State's run with Biggie Munn. That might have been against Doherty, I think. So Kentucky's doable. Does that add a lot of... I mean, I can see why you want to beat Kentucky because they've given Michigan State some bruises on the recruiting trail, and it's just right down I-75. That'd be interesting. Tennessee would be interesting. Jesse Adams says, who would you like to see do a future home-and-home with? Thanks for your hard work, Jim. I just mentioned those two. Oh, I don't know. You know, those West Coast teams are interesting. They've got Oregon coming up, Washington coming up. They've messed around with Arizona State. Hasn't gone all that well. UCLA, I think, would be a good one. They've never played them. And UCLA's not really, lately, they've not really made great infrastructural commitment to football. They hired Chip Kelly for a lot of money, but UCLA's been off for a while. You know, Oklahoma, would you want to go play them and lose? I don't know. Would you want to take a step down and play Oklahoma State? Does that do anything? Get into Georgia Tech? You know, Michigan State's trying to recruit in Georgia a lot. Georgia Tech might make sense. Detroit Spartan says, I could see LSU, Florida, Georgia. Now, Florida just had signed a home-and-home with who? Notre Dame. And they really beefed up their schedule. But Florida always plays Florida State. So Florida has never been all that gung-ho about scheduling another non-conference game other than their annual game against Florida State of the ACC. Florida famously has rarely left the state of Florida for a non-conference regular season game. I think it's Notre Dame they're going to be playing. That'll be, Notre Dame. That'll be like their first non-conference game outside of the state of Florida in like 40 years or something. So unless you know something that I don't know, Detroit Spartan, I don't foresee Florida. But LSU's available because they don't have a Sonian rivalry non-conference game, so they're kind of available. LSU, that'd be interesting, but it would provide a lot of zest for them coming to the stadium, Spartan Stadium. That'd be exciting, right? Hayden Fisher, going to need Ishbia to back that Brinks truck up again. Detroit Spartan says, we could put the money together, but MSU would never allow it. Horn is a great baseball player, Cartero says, and we're very bad, so I don't think we get him. All right, SEC, the polar opposite. What are we talking about here? Eat, sleep, breathe football down there for sure. Total opposite end of the spectrum. Detroit Spartan says, we're still in play for Gates, according to his dad. I thought you might know a little something about that. And it does not hurt that his dad is old friends with Matt Ishbia. Talking about Antonio Gates Sr. Right, Detroit Spartan? Going back to when those guys were AAU teammates. Charles Brantley out of Florida. Z. Paulson, do we fire Izzo? Troll. That's what Chris Trinum says. Z. Paulson says, no, I'm not. Okay, hold my beer. Tonona's going to go out throwing haymakers and clotheslines. All right, that's going to do it. In just under, we're 2 hours and 1 minute. It's interesting how often this podcast ends right at 2 hours. I'm not sure why that happens. I think that's when my Bill Clinton voice finally hits haywire. Anyway, appreciate everybody. Appreciate all the folks for playing. Appreciate the thumbs up and the subscriptions. We have lovely parting gifts for everybody. Actually, we don't, but maybe someday we will. I appreciate everybody tuning in. And big basketball game on Tuesday. SpartanMag.com going to have coverage going in, coming out. Big game on Thursday. Coverage going in, coming out. Recruiting. Got some recruiting saved up. Going to be cranking that out. Kenny Jordan, myself, Jason Killip. Konadyk's going to be coming back from the slopes. He's on the slopes this weekend. Much-deserved weekend up north with family. And he'll be back cranking it out. Having a good time. Check us out over the Underground Bunker in the meantime. I'll be on the Stout Show on Thursday. Be on the Huge Show once or twice this week, probably. Maybe I should start posting those on the website again. Anyway, hey, everybody. Thanks for coming and checking out Spartan Mag Live. If you're not familiar with SpartanMag.com, get over there and get involved in the nonsense. You'll love it. Until then, my name is Jim Comparoni, publisher of SpartanMag.com from East Lansing, Michigan, from the base of the Beaumont Tower, saying Happy New Year to everybody. Happy February. And we'll see you next time. SpartanMag.com.